Welcome to the Emerson Center for the Arts and Culture. I'm Susan Denson-Guy, the Executive Director. I want to thank you guys for joining us today during Give Big Gallatin Valley for a lunchtime chat with one of our amazing board members, Jason Beatty of the Gem Gallery. Hey, Jason.
Hi, Susan.
Great to see you.
It's exciting to be here.
Just a reminder again, please make sure that your cameras and microphones are turned off for the duration of the presentation. And before we go any further today, we'd like to take a minute to pause to acknowledge that the Emerson Center for the Arts and Culture occupies the ancestral, traditional, and contemporary lands of the Apsáalooke Crow, the Salish Kootenai Flathead, and the Cheyenne. We honor all of the indigenous caretakers of these lands, waters, and the elders who lived here before, the indigenous of today, and the generations to come. At this time, we'd like to invite each of you to follow the link that's in the chat and to let us know where you're joining us from this afternoon. This is our fourth time hosting a virtual event of this size, and we're going to ask for a little grace and latitude as we navigate this virtual forum. If you have any technical issues this afternoon, please remember that we are recording today's session and we'll make it available on all of our social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, and our YouTube channel sometime next week. So it's going to be there forever. At this time, we also want to let you know that you're more than welcome to submit any questions that you may have for Jason and his team in the chat box. As time allows, at the end of their presentation, we're going to try and answer all of your questions. If you all have more questions, I know rock hounds, you all want to know where the good stuff is, what to look for, where to find it. If you have extra questions, we will answer as many as we can today, and what we don't get to, we'll make sure to answer on our social media platforms as well. Before I hand it over to Jason and his team, I want to let you know that it is Give Big Gallatin Valley. The Emerson, today we're working hard to raise funding to help us with the last section of the roof. I know that's not a sexy ask in any way. None of us want to pay for the roof, but in order for us to do what we do to serve our community, we need to finish one last segment. And we have that scheduled to happen this July with your help. And with that, Jason, I want to hand it over to you. And I want to thank you for your service on our board and let you introduce your team.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Susan. And thank you so much for all that you do for the Emerson. It's been a joy being on the board with you. So, well, welcome everyone. My name is Jason Beatty. I am now the owner of the Gem Gallery. The business started here in downtown Bozeman by my father, and now a second generation business. I am a lifelong rock hound. I remember going to some of the places we're going to talk about today as a little kid with my dad and having wonderful adventures collecting crystals and sapphires and all kinds of stuff. So I am a jeweler and a designer here, and I'm a graduate diamond. I have a graduate diamond degree from GIA in gemology. And I'm joined today by Brandon, who's part of our team here. So Brandon, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, my name's, I'm Brandon Lindberg, and I am the graduate gemologist here at the Gem Gallery. You know, my interest in rock hound and rocks started really young when I was given a small rock collection by my grandfather. And, you know, I've had that interest for a very long time. I really found it when I started making a little bit more jewelry. And then after going to school to GIA as well, I graduated with my graduate gemologist degree and then moved out here to Montana to go rock hounding. It was one of the things that really drew me out here, and I'm super excited to talk about rock hounding with you guys today.
Awesome. All right, so I'm going to start by going over some of the rock hounding basics, and then we're going to touch on a couple specific deposits that you can access here that are public access in Montana. So some of the rock hounding basics. Rock hounding can be a wonderful hobby. It can range from a light afternoon stroll to a week or month-long adventure to try and to find some really rare specimens. So we're going to focus a little bit more on the day to weekend-long rock hounding trip and expedition, and go over all of those details. So three of the most important things on rock hounding are safety, the having the right equipment, and knowing the legality of what you're doing. So on the safety side, rock hounding is almost always out in the mountains or out in the wilderness somewhere. It tends to be pretty remote, although not always. There are some places like Helena that have deposits right near the town or even in town. So, but most of the time you're gonna need to be prepared to go hiking on like a day-long hike, to be out in the sun or in the rain or in the conditions. So bringing a good pair of hiking boots, bringing the right sunscreen, water is going to be really critical, food, all the basics of if you were going hiking or camping, you'll need for rock hounding as well, plus a little bit extra. Headlamps going to be really important, not just during the night, but if you get into a pocket and you're digging down, being able to see what you're doing is going to be critical. Bug spray, sunscreen, and most importantly, make a plan and communicate that to someone else that isn't going with you. That way they know when you're going to check in when you get home. And if you don't, they know where to go looking for you. So all basic safety for wilderness type activities are so important in rock hounding. Equipment wise, the equipment's going to really vary based on what deposit type you're in. So some deposits you're just walking around and looking for stuff on the surface. Others you're digging in the dirt, maybe a number of feet down even. So oftentimes a shovel, a pickaxe are going to be helpful if you're doing more of a digging type of deposit. A screwdriver is almost always helpful to kind of, especially if you're in a pocket and want to be a little more delicate, get working through a pocket of a deposit. A rock hammer, which is a hammer on one end and kind of a spike off the other, is going to be a very versatile tool, whether it's moving rocks out of the way with it, breaking apart rocks. And they're smaller and can be backpacked in if you're hiking a ways. That's a great tool. Making sure you have a backpack or something to get those tools in and out, as well as be prepared to find a bunch of crystals or large scale deposits. So good backpack and good wrapping materials. So newspaper, egg cartons, towels, things to protect your specimens, because they might be really light and delicate and need to be taken care of so that they don't break on your trip home. So to talk about the legal side of things, every deposit's going to be different. There are so many different types of properties and ownerships that you'll have to be aware of. So some of the ones we're talking about today are national forest, some are state land. You need to know the rules, especially around like national parks or private deposits that are privately owned or have private claims. Knowing those details is critical to making sure you're doing everything properly. You'll also need to know what minerals you're allowed to collect and what you're not, because there are protected specimens and minerals in some places, and knowing where you're at is going to be critical. One of the best ways to know all of this stuff is by getting a good rock hounding guidebook that's specific to your area. So this is a favorite of mine, Rock Hounding Guide to Montana. It goes over a lot of different deposits here in the state. You can see that here, but there's also all kinds of other ones. And the more specific to the region, the more detailed and better it'll be for the specific spot that you're at. So knowing where you're at, a GPS, a map, all of those are going to be helpful tools for making sure you're on the legal side. All right, Brandon, do you want to give us an overview of gemstones?
Yeah, definitely. So Montana truthfully is a treasure state. So you can actually find over 500 different kinds of minerals out in Montana. And I'll just go over and just give you a real brief list of things that you can definitely find in Montana. So the number one thing is definitely agates. You can find fossils, you can find fluorite, you can find quartz, all different varieties of quartz. Definitely sapphires, of course, and apatite, barite, and some calcite. So that's just a small list of some of the more major minerals that you're able to find out here in Montana. You know, the localities that we kind of have listed on the map here are a lot of the sapphire locations. So the one right in the center is the Yogo Creek, and we won't be going over the Yogo Creek, but it's really good to know kind of where it is and where a lot of those places are. So you can find minerals all over the state in Montana, but there's so many that it might take me a little bit to list them all, but I just figured I'd give you some that give you a little bit of a broad overview of those. So
great. All right, so the first of our 4 deposits to talk about is Gem Mountain. And we're starting with this because it is the most accessible of all of these deposits. So Gem Mountain is a privately owned deposit. in which they publicly sell gravel and have a setup to process that gravel. So you're not necessarily digging in the dirt. You don't need any equipment. They're going to have everything you need. So all you need to do is show up and buy a bucket of dirt and start digging through it. They also sell buckets to take home, which can be a nice option. I believe they'll even ship things, at which point then you need like a white plate, some tweezers, a spray bottle, and you can just start sorting through and picking out your sapphires. So the sapphires out of Gem Mountain, they come in every color of the rainbow, which is super fun. They start out, I'll show you on the screen here, this lighter color, kind of pastel, and then they most often get heat treated, and then they get to be this kind of darker colors, but they can also become orange or yellows. These are all kind of those bluish greens. And then after that, they're generally faceted. And so here's just a few faceted sapphires specifically from Gem Mountain, I believe, on these. And you can see lots more of those on our website. It's one thing that's so fun about Gem Mountain is it's just so accessible for everyone. We put the age level here at all ages because anyone can show up and just have fun digging in through the dirt that you get there. It's just outside of Phillipsburg, so a couple hours from Bozeman, and a wonderful first entry level to rock hounding. The main minerals there are going to be corundum, so mostly sapphire, but also it has been shown that you can get rubies here in Montana, but they are exceptionally rare. So don't go out expecting to find a bunch of rubies, but you can definitely expect to find some sapphires if you get a bucket of gravel there. There's other minerals there as well. Garnets is one of the more prevalent ones, but there's a whole variety, sapphires being the most sought after. So that's Gem Mountain. I remember going there as a kid, super fun, super accessible.
So Crystal Park is also a really great spot. I would say it's very accessible for most people. It does take a little bit more digging to obtain a lot of crystals, but you can definitely still walk around and find quite a few on the ground. So getting up there is kind of difficult. It is blocked for the road up there is kind of blocked for a good majority of the year, but it is open typically about Memorial Day to Labor Day. A lot of times it's a lot easier to get up there and the weather's nice. So you want to make sure that, you know, the road is clear and the gates are open to both sides. So definitely just make sure that you're well within those parameters on the dates. So it's about $5 a day to dig there, and they have a nice big parking lot, so it's real easy to kind of get up and park right where you kind of need to go. So you can park in the parking lot, pay your fee, and then you can only stay there for up to a week per year. So you can't stay too long, but I can guarantee you'll find a lot of crystals in just a very short amount of time. So when you get up there, what you'll want to do is you'll park and then start walking up kind of on the trailhead. And on the trail, you'll see tons and tons of holes all over the place. You want to make sure that you read all of the signage that is there and make sure that you're digging in the right area that's allowed. And as well as you want to make sure that you're not destroying any of the environment or anything like that. So you want to really be careful of, you know, trees and stuff like that too. So you'll walk up on the trail and you can pretty easily kind of go, you want to be at least 5 feet off of it, and you can start digging kind of just down into the topsoil. And once you kind of get through the topsoil will kind of have a lot of random, you know, you might see some sticks or twigs in there, and that way you'll know that you're still in the topsoil. Once you get through that, you'll start to see some of the layers of the earth. And in the layers of the earth, a lot of times you'll be able to find some of the crystals. So things that you'll want to be looking for is kind of like the real red kind of dirt. It'll be almost like a rusty kind of color, and it's iron oxide, which is what creates both smoky quartz and amethyst. So it's a real good tall tale sign to start following those kind of veins in the earth to really get to some of the larger crystals. So it's a little bit harder to find some of the big specimens, but you can find tons in the lower portion. So about 3 feet down. So there's lots of varieties that you can find out there. There's smoky quartz, there's amethyst, there's regular just clear quartz that you can find. And some of my favorite specimens that you can find out there are actually what they call crystal scepters. So scepters are where the crystal had grown and then there is a secondary formation on the top of it. So it has almost looks like a little popsicle. It's really, really cool. And I have a few of them here. So here's another one. Really fun stuff to find. And you can even get them with amethyst and some smoky quartz in there. So really cool stuff.
Awesome. I used to go up to Crystal Park a lot when I was a kid, and I actually have some of the ones I found when I was young that my dad helped me turn into little necklaces. So here's one here, and here's one on a chain. So there's tons of fun things you can do once you find the crystals. And this is just kind of one form, but wonderful collection items, wonderful pieces to make jewelry out of, all kinds of stuff. And again, fun for all ages. So our next deposit is Highlight, really close to home here. And not everyone knows that there's really cool specimens at Highlight, but Highlight is actually named after a mineral, Highlight Opal, which is the most sought after specimen of Highlight. So just south of Bozeman, it's mostly surface deposits where you're just kind of walking around looking on the surface and maybe a little bit of light digging, moving some rocks around, but you're not going to really need a pick or a shovel, more of just like a rock hammer and a good backpack too, because there's a lot up there. We put the age or difficulty at kind of moderate to advanced. The age is a little bit more dependent because it's going to take a lot of hiking. Hiking up from the spot I most often go, you start at the Grotto Falls trailhead at the end of the reservoir, past the reservoir, hike up to the lake, and then hike up to the peak. And the peak is where you're going to see the most, and actually farther along that trail, even down the Gallatin Ridgeline, is where I've seen the most specimens. So it is quite a hike. Getting to the peak and back is about a 15-mile hike, and if you're going further, it's just going to add miles. So age is more dependent on hiking ability than anything. Again, bring your water, bring your food, make sure you're well prepared because it's a bit of an adventure back there, but beautiful terrain. And what you're looking for is Highlight Opal is a true form of opal, and it's a form of opal that forms really bubbly and most often on the surface of rock. So I've got some good examples here I'll show on the screen on the video. So this is a fun one where you can see it's most of this is just a big rock that's got a small bit of Highlight Opal on the surface there. Here's a slightly bigger chunk. So you see this all over where you're on these either gray or reddish rocks, which it almost just looks like ice float along the surface. Most often they're clear, but they can also be white, like this piece here. This is a piece that I broke off from a bigger rock. You can see it is solid Highlight Opal, which is really neat. In other places in the world, it can come clear enough and big enough that you can facet it, but most often this is kept just as really neat specimens. Here's a really kind of milky white piece, and then here's one where it kind of grew on a more iron-bearing piece, so you get some fun oranges that get brought into the opal. So those can be really fun, really easy to find. Once you get there, it's just getting there and back that's the hard part. Highlight and the Gallatin range there also have a lot of petrified wood, which can be really fun. I've got a bigger chunk of that right here, this big petrified log, and you can see in there some of the wood grain, especially on this end, some of the rings from the tree growth that have been mineralized and turned in from wood to petrified wood. An important note on petrified wood, especially in the Gallatin range, which is part of the Gallatin Petrified Forest, is it is protected. You are allowed to take petrified wood home if you have a permit, and the permits are free. They're pretty easy to get through the Forest Service, but you do have to have a permit in order to take some home, and you're allowed up to 20 cubic inches of petrified wood per year, and the permits are good for 1 year. So again, go to the Forest Service website if you're interested. Make sure you read all the rules because again, they can change, and make sure you're doing it right. The other thing you can find up at Highlight quite a bit on that ridge line are some historical artifacts. There have been humans in this area for thousands of years, and they've left artifacts there from thousands of years ago to maybe just last weekend's camping adventure. And different artifacts are going to be protected differently. So anything that's from indigenous cultures that have lived here for thousands of years are fully protected. So you can go up and you can look at them, you can appreciate them and the culture behind them, but you need to leave them where you found them. You can't take those home with you. There are more recent artifacts that aren't protected. There were a lot of gold prospectors that would go through there, and there's been people enjoying the mountain range for the last 100 years or more. And some of those can be really fun things to find. Like the picture here is some old glass that has turned purple over the years, sitting in the sun. Again, know your legality, make sure you're doing everything right there, but that can be very fun as well. And it's so close to Bozeman, which is really nice if you live here. All right, Brandon, Delma Lake.
All right, so Delma Lake is a much harder area to go digging, but it still has plenty of minerals out there to go find. So it is much more open to the public. It's typically on BLM land, Bureau of Land Management land, and it's a lot easier to access to than I would say maybe Crystal Park, a little bit closer, kind of the same deal. But it's much harder to go and find minerals out there. So I would say, you know, generally you could go out there probably Memorial Day to Labor Day again, but it's going to be really dependent on the weather to be able to get out there and start digging. So a lot of these specimens that I have photographed here are ones that are coming out of what I would call hard rock mining. So it's really a lot harder to get into breaking into those pockets and getting into like this region. And as well as finding these pockets is a lot harder too as well. It's very, very spread out, and you want to make real sure that you have a map and a GPS and plenty of water, and it's very important that you let someone know where you're going, because Delma is a very dangerous place as well. You know, there's lots of rugged terrain, and you can definitely hurt yourself if you're not careful. So there's no fees out there, but finding a lot of the specimens is a little bit more difficult. So one of the things that you're really looking for when you get out there is what they call a quartz blowout. And what that is basically there's tons of graphic granite, and I'll go over that in the next slide. And that it usually has quartz kind of running through it, and what you'll see is lots of milky quartz all over kind of in an area, and you really want to kind of explore and see and potentially dig down. One thing that you really want to be careful of is that there's a lot of private claims out there and a lot of private property, so be very sure that you're not digging on any private property or on any claims when you do stumble upon something that you kind of want to dig out. So there's many different kinds of minerals that you can find out there, but the best indicator of them is going to be that graphic granite. So I have that exact specimen that's photographed right here. And if you see, it kind of looks almost like a patterning, almost like a tiger, and it's super cool. But basically, when you find stuff like that, it can almost lead you to a pocket where you might be able to find some larger crystals like something like this. So really nice smoky quartz specimens from out in Lake Delmo, as well as many different kinds of minerals. So it's possible to find epidote out there. You can find some sphene. I have a little titanite, which is sphene specimen right here. Very, very cool stuff. But yeah, it's very dangerous though, and you really want to be careful that you're not trespassing on anybody's property, and that you're following all of the laws when you get out there. It's very important that you do that. But yeah.
Awesome. All right, so those are our 4 deposits that we wanted to cover today. We've got some links here that I think have also been posted in the chat, and this is where you can find out more about how what you need to know before going out there on the legal side, where you can find maps and where to park and stuff like that. So again, do your homework. All of these specimens that we're showing, and even some more, are going to be here in our showroom here at the Gem Gallery downtown for the next week or two. So if you want to take a look at more pieces or handle them up close, some of them you'll be able to handle, some of them are a little more delicate. But come on down. We're also going to put some of this information together in a bit of a brochure that you can take with you, some of the talking points that run on the slides, so more resources that you can pick up for free here at the Gem Gallery. So that concludes our presentation part of this. We're going to open up for Q&A, but before we do that, I want to highlight a fun giveaway we're doing. So for those of you who were on the presentation live today and have donated to the Emerson during Give Big, which Susan will talk more about in a minute, are going to be entered to win this, which is a jar of gravel straight out of the sluice boxes up at the Yogo deposit. So the Yogo mine is closed to the public. It's an underground hard rock mine, so it's not as accessible as Gem Mountain. And they don't really sell gravel or whatnot. But we got a jar of this straight out of the sluice, so we don't know what all is in here, but other than we can guarantee I can see some Yogos on the surface right now. So the winner of that drawing will win this jar and be able to pick out their own Yogos. So, all right, we're going to go back to our Q&A. Welcome back, Susan, and hopefully we got some questions. Oh, you're muted.
You're muted.
I got it.
There we go.
Sorry about that. You guys are awesome. Thanks so much. You know, Jason's heard me say this, that I am a total rock hound. I grew up doing that. I am the nerd that carries my loop in my bag at all times, and generally have my rock hammer in my car. Yeah, same.
Here's my loop.
The same. I've had it on the same blue ribbon since I took mineralogy in college. So folks, now's your time to ask Jason and Brandon any questions you have. Feel free to drop them in the chat. And I'm not seeing anything showing up quite yet, but if you have any questions for them, be sure to drop them there and I will relay them. But I have two questions that came up as you all were speaking. Jason, you mentioned about needing a permit for petrified wood.
Yes.
Which I think that's just so awesome that to say that, and a reminder to folks as well. But then you said you can only collect 20 cubic inches annually. So my question was, that log that you have seems like that's pretty, that might exceed the limit, right? Not that you have a bad, you know what I mean?
No, this is still within the limit. 20 cubic inches are, you know, I'd have to check. I don't know where this specific log came from. I don't know that this is from that specific deposit. 20 cubic inches is a pretty good amount. So, but what they really don't want you to do is, there are some amazing tree trunk size specimens in there, and there's entire logs. The forest that was here was more similar to like the redwood forest in California. They were massive trees, much bigger than the trees we have here today. And there's some logs that are so big you can even go inside them down in like the Tom Minor Basin area. But they don't want to be disturbing that type of things. You know, little pieces. This one is a piece that I did collect from that on a hiking trip there. You know, this is the type of stuff they want you with a permit to be collecting. The trunk size giant ones are not. And there's even some cooler specimens that they're actually much more crystallized or agatized, and some really beautiful specimens there. The Gem and Mineral Club of Gallatin Valley here in Bozeman have some really amazing specimens there. Some of the museum, the Mineral Museum in Butte, have some great specimens where you can see some of those bigger pieces. But even on just some of the trails, you can see them. Yeah, great question.
So with that, Jason, can you find any opalized petrified wood?
Yes, yep. In the Gallatin Petrified Forest, there are opalized specimens that are just stunning. You get all kinds of colors to them, and every piece is going to be different. And even, you know, one section of a tree that is going to be different from another section, depending on the conditions they formed in, what the pressures, the minerals present, all kinds of stuff.
That's excellent. And then one other question that showed up, with that highlight opal, is there something about when you're on highlight opal, not that you want to be on the ridges after dark, but can you use a black light to help locate that as well?
You know, that's a great question. A lot of highlight opal is fluorescent, and it'll shine bright green. I don't believe any of this stuff that I collected here. I haven't actually seen, you can see it as I shine the light on it, it just reflects the blue light. It doesn't give any of this green off. But when you see a piece that it's just like this bright green, looks like something that's probably radioactive, and actually some of it can be radioactive. I don't think here, but other places like Russia, there's deposits that are, which is part of the joy of minerals, is that some of them do some of them can be dangerous even. But no, I don't believe, I've never seen any from highlight here in Montana that is fluorescent, but it doesn't mean there couldn't be.
Are there other minerals in Montana that you can find that phosphoresce?
Oh yeah.
Definitely.
Some sapphires will phosphoresce, or will fluoresce. I don't know if they'll phosphoresce, because so the difference between those is fluorescence is when you shine a black light, a UV light on it, it will glow. Phosphorescence is it actually holds some of that energy and releases it more slowly. So after the light stops, it will continue to glow. And you can have fluorescence in every color. In fact, diamonds often will fluoresce, not all the time, but and they can fluoresce any color of the rainbow, depending on the specific diamond. Every diamond will have one color that it fluoresces, but you can find different colors there. Brandon, do you know of any other minerals that phosphoresce great in Montana?
Definitely, yeah. So absolutely some calcite. I've definitely seen some calcite, some dogtooth calcites that have some phosphorescence on them, as well as some calcite that actually has highlight opal that is also fluorescent too. So pretty cool stuff.
And the dogtooth would be the dual point.
Right. Well, actually, it just comes to one point to be considered a tooth or a dog tooth calcite. But when it's double terminated like that, I would just call it a double terminated calcite crystal. But
And
yeah, it's that.
I was hopeful here. I was hopeful. So William Kruger, just to say no sound, you might check the sound on your on your individual computer and maybe try turning up the volume on your end. We've had a few folks that have muted out and forgot to turn their volume back up so they can't hear us. So give that a try. And if you don't get sound during the presentation, check back and get it when it's on social media. Somebody's asking if there's ever any rock hounding trips that folks know about.
Yeah, that's a great question. I know the Gem and Mineral Club here will do trips on occasion. I don't know what their current plans are. I know last in the fall, I think it was, they were talking about some summer expeditions that would be more of like a couple days or week longs, and some of them are out of Montana too. So they have a huge variety. I would highly recommend, if you're interested, get in touch with them, because they also have, the club itself holds some mining claims, especially over, I think there's some near Delma, over Homestake Pass, that anyone that's a member of the club has full access to, and they will coordinate trips occasionally for groups to go. So I don't know of any upcoming ones, but check in with them for sure.
Cool. Brandon, I know when we were getting ready for today, you had a couple of really cool specimens that were showing. Was there any that you had that you wanted to show today that you didn't during your presentation?
Absolutely. Yeah, I have quite a few actually that I'd love to show. So a lot of these specimens that I have that I'm about to show you are all from the Lake Delma area. So I'll show you this one. This one's really, really fun. So it has, this is two crystals kind of grown together. It's very, very large piece.
Go ahead and put it up there a little higher for us, Brandon, in front of your camera. There you go. And then nice and slow rotation.
Yeah, that looks great.
So really fun crystal, very big. This one was found in a pocket, similar to ones that I had photographed in the earlier slides. This one's a really fun one too. Kind of the same similar thing where it has lots of really nice feldspar. It's all terminated on the top right there. And then some really nice smoky quartz as well. Really fun stuff that you can find out in Lake Delma. You can even find some schorl, which is tourmaline. It's just the black variety of tourmaline. You can find some really fun specimens out there.
Brandon, did you ever get any other color in tourmalines here in Montana?
So I personally haven't found any that are just single crystals, but I do have some specimens from Lake Delma that have blue quartz inclusions instead of just the typical black, which is really, really cool. I can't really show that just because it's so small, but I definitely do have some blue tourmaline that came out of that area, which is really sweet.
Jason, I know that everybody likes show and tell. All of us rock hounds, it's like you find it, and then the next thrill, right, is showing it off. Did you have one?
Absolutely.
Definitely.
I do.
Yeah, here, I'll show you one more. So this one is actually from the Little Gem Mine, which is it's close to the Delma Lake area. This one is basically, you have your initial crystal growth, which is the smoky quartz, and then you have a amethyst overgrowth on the top of it. So very, very cool specimen. But this is a protected mine, and you can't necessarily go digging out there, but it is possible to find specimens similar to that all within that area.
Excellent. Jason, what's your show and tell before we do the next question?
So I have a couple pieces from Crystal Park here that were some of my favorite when I was a kid digging with my dad. So this is a bigger amethyst piece. And what's really cool, it's to me a little tricky to see on there.
Nice and close, yep.
But it's got, there you go. You can see there's some it looks like stair stepping or almost a fingerprint on the surface, which Montana is really known to have that type of surface quality on crystals more than a lot of other places. And this one's fun because on the back side it's more smooth, but on the front side it's got that deposit or that stair stepping, and then it's got some smaller crystals forming off of it. And Brandon, do you know at all why that surface is created? Is it magnetic etching?
So it's slow formation as well as etching as well. So it's kind of both. Mm-hmm.
Because crystals, they don't just grow once. It's very common for a crystal to grow, and then actually the conditions in what they grow in, the liquids and whatnot, can etch away and dissolve it a little bit, and then they'll grow again and kind of go back and forth. Mm-hmm. And different periods of crystal formation will have different speeds and different trace elements, which is causing different colors and stuff like that. Here's a really nice little amethyst scepter. It's a little hard to see on the video, the colors of it, but just some really cool stair stepping at the base of it, as well as this is a favorite of mine because it's got a little bit of everything. Might be tricky to see again. There. So it's got some of that stair stepping. It's got a graduated color from light smoky to light purple, a nice double growth on the for a scepter, and some multiple points at the tip. So again, this stuff will be here at our store, so you can come take a closer look at it for the next probably 2 weeks or so. So stop on by and we can talk more about it in detail there as well.
Super cool. So there's another question that's shown up from Eugene. Is there any good rock hounding along the rivers?
Absolutely. Missouri River is the first one that pops into my head. Missouri River agate is actually a pretty famous type of agate because it can range in colors, but a lot of times it's this really beautiful kind of velvety, soft, light blue. And you can polish that and turn it into nice pieces of jewelry or keep it as a cool specimen. Those are some of my favorite riverside specimens where you're just walking along the river, kicking over rocks, looking for something that's cool. But also on the Missouri River, you can find sapphire. And actually there are quite a few, more than people think, sapphire deposits around the state. There's only a couple of sites that have quality and quantity enough to mine, but like the Madison River over by like Bear Trap, there's a couple sapphire deposits along that area, and you can find them along the river occasionally. It's pretty rare, and not as much gem quality, some lower quality there, but great specimens. There's some old like silver mines along that river as well that you can find them around there. But rivers are great places to find specimens, especially harder materials like sapphire or agate's still pretty hard, because the river's gonna you're going to get a lot of those materials that are going to be denser and they'll sink, like gold and whatnot. But it also just kind of collects a good variety of everything that's around it as gravity does it and rain and whatnot wash it together. And a lot of times the river will lightly polish different materials so that you get to see inside of it a little bit more. Because sometimes, when you're rocking around, You might see a piece like this that, or I'll use this as a better example. You know, you see this rock and it looks just like a rock, and you flip it over and then you see the specimen on the surface. So rivers can be great because they will reveal something and show it almost as if you were polishing it.
So Jason, I know, and Brandon, a lot of us pick up rocks all the time, right? Come home with a pocket full, a cup full, whatever you have, your backpack, ask
Totally.
your partner to haul it out because it might be a little heavy. So what are some of the things that we can do with the rocks? I mean, not all of us have like a lapidary set up. Are there folks that we can send stones to get them faceted or cut?
Totally. So different types of materials will have different options. So like if you're going to Gem Mountain, that's a very common deposit to make finished jewelry out of it, where either you can make jewelry out of the rough stones. Like here I've got a ring. This is Yogo sapphire. It's a fancy Montana sapphire, but I've taken a raw Yogo and mounted it up as a rough, unpolished stone, because I think the surface of it and the colors are really beautiful that way. But I could have also polished this, like I showed in these jars, where this lighter one is pre any heat treatment. This is straight out of the ground. This is heat treated, but that's why it's darker. So sapphire is very classic to polish and facet. Other materials like opal, and for sapphire, you know, we offer those services here. Gem Mountain does as you're digging them. There's other places as well. We also offer lapidary work here ourselves. Chris is our goldsmith that does all of our lapidary. So he'll take agate and he'll shape it into whatever shape you want, or whatever shape the formation dictates. Give it a nice polish, and then we can set it into a piece of jewelry. And sometimes keeping a specimen, especially if it's more of a phenomenal specimen, and phenomenal in the technical sense of that it's a good example of one type of formation or another. So, you know, like a scepter, a well-formed scepter would be kind of a shame to polish, even though you could get a nice polished piece out of that. So every specimen's gonna have a different kind of way to best show off the material, but it's also personal preferences. There's great ways that you at home with a little bit of, you know, get some wire and whatnot and start some wire wrapping. Brandon, I know you that was one of your first forays into the jewelry world, was doing some really nice wire wrapping.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was really fun. Definitely was my introduction, kind of getting into crystals and gemstones. I absolutely loved wire wrapping, and you know, it takes a lot of skill, and it took me a long time to really develop those skills to get good at setting the stones and making them look really nice. But it was a great project for me to do while I was at home, really hobby that really turned into, you know, my career, which is really fun. So, you know, I really, you know, it was awesome to be able to make your own jewelry at home. But like, you know, Jason was saying, we can definitely actually also help you in getting your stones cut. So a lot of the sapphires and, you know, that you find, you know, whether that be honestly anywhere, we can definitely help you out in heat treating them as well as having them cut too. So that if you wanted to have a nice finished piece of jewelry or make something yourself, we can do either one.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I really love about rock hounding and jewelry as well, is that, you know, it can be something that you do once a year, go out on an afternoon walk, and that can be the extent of it. Or it can be a full-fledged career that can be really fun. And a number of my team here, and even my dad starting out this business, you know, rock hounding was kind of his first steps into really falling in love with making jewelry and gemstones. Brandon, I know that was a big part of your path. We have another staff member that, you know, we met at the rock club at one of their events, and now she's one of my wonderful sales staff here. So there's a huge opportunity for whether you just want to have fun and at home and make some really great Christmas presents, or turn it into a lifelong passion.
All right, so all of us amateur rock hounders, we all dream maybe of finding that one thing that would help us, you know, retire early.
Right. Definitely.
From all the stories that you've heard, whether it's what you found or a friend or a story, what's the best amateur find that you guys have heard of in Montana?
Good question.
There's some good ones.
I know for me, and this is alleged, of course, but in Crystal Park, I've heard it actually from two different people that back in the day, there was a very large hole out in Crystal Park, and they were finding supposedly scepters that were the size of your forearm, which is, I mean, incredible, like about 1.5 feet long. I couldn't imagine walking away with a crystal this big, but, you never know what you're going to find out there. I mean, I've seen some very large crystals come out, size of Coke cans, even larger coming out of Crystal Park, but yeah, so those are just some of the rumors I've heard, but definitely the largest is going to be, I would say, probably out of regions like that.
Yeah.
I've seen a few different things that have just been incredible specimens. I've seen some sapphires that people found walking along like the Missouri River, not even at one of the main deposit locations, that have just cut into incredible finished pieces of jewelry. One of my favorites that I've seen in the last couple of years was I've seen some phenomenal gold nugget specimens. And there's some places you can go to find your own gold nuggets. And there was one gentleman that had done it, as a part-time hobby pretty regularly for years, and he brought in, and he just did it with a metal detector. So he was really focusing on large-scale nuggets as opposed to going for like powdered gold or placer gold. He was just going out with a metal detector, a screwdriver, maybe a little shovel or pick, and he had some. I've seen some nuggets from Montana that have been several ounces, which the gold value of that alone is several $1,000s. The specimen value of a solid, well-formed nugget of that scale is significantly more. So rock hounding, I always tease, because my dad's now more on the mining side than the jewelry side, and I always tell him, remind him that mining, and I'll extend this to rock hounding, is a glorified version of gambling, because it's addictive. It's always, it's going to be in that next bucket of dirt. It's going to be on that next trip. And it's so fun. The good thing about it is it's great exercise. It's healthy for you. So I think it's a better form of gambling, but a form of gambling nonetheless. So be warned, if you come back in 10 years and tell me you've devoted your whole life to it, I did warn you.
That's funny. For me, it's like rock hounding and mushroom hunting, it's just behind that next one.
Absolutely. 10 miles later.
I know, right?
You guys are awesome. Thank you so much. I'm going to ask if you could switch it back to Jason, to your link that has all of the links that we're sharing. And just a reminder, Jason and his team at the Gem Gallery, that's perfect. For anybody that listened in today and that makes a donation to the Emerson during Give Big, you have to be a part of the special noon presentation. You get that jar, super, super sexy jar. I'm a little jelly because, that just looks like fun.
I can see one right there. There is a Yogo on that surface, just that little bit of blue. There's actually a couple along this line here.
You're killing me. You're killing me.
Just a tease. Just a tease.
It's pretty. Let's just bust out the hammers. Take the rest of the afternoon and go do it. Anyway, you guys are awesome. Thanks for joining us today. Thanks for lighting a fire back in me. I love what I do at the Emerson. If you can't tell, I'm a little bit of a rock hounding geek, and we have a few folks on our staff too as well that really love to get out there and find cool things. Makes our Mondays chats kind of a little extra interesting. So you guys are awesome. Give Big Gallatin Valley happens until 6 o'clock tonight. I'm just going to encourage you to dig deep, give what you can. We would love your support at the Emerson to help us do what we do, to provide gallery and exhibit space for creative folks, to put on exhibits and offer education for all ages, from littles through adults. We're here for you. The Emerson is here for you, and it's our pleasure to be able to keep this beautiful space open and vibrant for everybody that walks through our doors. So Jason and Brandon, thanks for being a part of Give Big with us today. And thank you to everybody that's joining us. I've seen a few friends from across the country pop in and out. Thank you. Thanks for taking your time to be with us and be a part of the Emerson. We adore you and we're grateful for your support. Give Big, again, happening now. We have a matching fund available at the Emerson. I don't think we've fully met our match yet because, you know, we're raising money today for that super sexy final roof project. I tell you folks, if you help us meet this goal today, I promise you I will never, ever ask for help with the roof again, unless, you know, unless that giant rocket that's coming towards Earth over the weekend. Just all kidding aside, but truly check the news. Anyway, thank you guys. Thanks so much for spending your lunch hour with us and for supporting the Emerson. And we appreciate you guys. Everybody take good care. And if we didn't get to your questions, we'll drop them in our social media over the next few days. Thanks, everybody. Take good care.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Bye, guys.
Bye.